Hey folks, I'm Spencer, and on today's episode of Cult Mania we're getting quarantined in a Spanish apartment block in Arrow Video's new release of Wreck. Wreck is a Spanish language found footage horror movie directed by Jaime Balaguero and Paco Plaza. Most people will probably know this because A, it's a really good film, or B, because it inspired the American remake Quarantine. The plot follows a TV presenter and a cameraman who are working in night shift with a fire engine crew in Barcelona. They're called to an apartment block to help get a screaming old lady out of her flat that she's been locked in. But when they get there, things are going very bad, and soon they are quarantined in the apartment block with a bunch of gut munchers. The first thing that will hit a lot of people about Wreck is that it's a found footage film with characters that you like, who are well acted. Hooray! Manuela Velasco plays Angela, the sort of main TV presenter, and she's just really likeable. It doesn't take like 5 minutes before you're rooting for her. I think this is actually helped by the fact that she was, in real life, a TV presenter, so all of her sort of quirks that she has, like when she's presenting, I'm guessing, are what she used to do in real life. She's just a very real presence. She's resourceful without ever being like overly badass. She's not like super calm, and yet she's not just screaming hysteria the entire time. It's this really measured, well-balanced performance. But to be honest, that goes for everyone in the film. No one is just like cartoonishly evil, or it's an odd film because, I mean, it's a found footage film. There is a lot of just screaming while you look at blurry things, but it has very grounded characters. It has very realistic characters, and I think it was a very wise choice to pick firefighters as main characters, because I think everyone just sort of is naturally inclined to like firefighters, and that gets you into the story a lot quicker. Now, I mentioned that the performances are very realistic, and I think realism is one of the most important parts of why Wreck is so good, because, I mean, it's a found footage show. It kind of relies on the fact that you are going to believe that it is real. And I think it nails this in its cinematography and in its sort of the way its action develops. Cinematography wise, I mean, it's a found footage film. There is a lot of running around while you look at things that are blurry, like I said. But one thing it does very well, it's never sickening. I never felt motion sick watching this, and I think that's because the action is nicely spread out, and you get enough calm points that you aren't just watching things doing that while there's loud noises all of the time. Also, I mean, it's a found footage film, so you have to have the obligatory turn that camera off, oi, stop filming this moments, but they do a very good job of making the camera a key prop and having just a bunch of points where it isn't necessary, either that people can't see into a room, so they have to lift the camera up because that's the only way they can see. There's a lamp on the top of it, so that is your sort of key. Oh, we're going into a dark area, we need the camera. Oh, it's got night vision as well, because you have to have night vision in these sorts of films, but it uses it incredibly well. The key thing with all of those little moments where they're using the camera for specific things as well is that they're never overused. They never outstay their welcome. And to be honest, that goes for the film as well. It's 75 minutes to 78 minutes, depending upon which version of the film you watch. It's a very brisk film. This is helped as well by they do turn the camera off for extended periods of time so that they can do time jumps. It just means that the film is always just clicking along at a breakneck pace, to be honest. Now seems like a perfect time to explain the two different versions of the film that are in this release, because they both tie to realism and they tie to the fact that I just said that there were two different film lengths. Contained in here is a production edit and a theatrical edit. Now, scene-wise, these are exactly the same, which I know is going to sound strange because I said they are different lengths. Bear with me on this because I'm going to get slightly technical. The production edit is the film as it was filmed, which was at the European standard for digital 25 frames per second at 1080 interlaced. This is how the film was shot, this is how the film was edited. Then, to be able to be shown in cinemas where digital projection wasn't a big thing at the time, they had to print that digital footage onto film at 24 frames per second. That has now been scanned from master materials and presented in 1080p as the theatrical edit, which has film grain and that slower frame rate. Now, that is why the production edit is 3 minutes shorter than the theatrical edit, because it is going at 1 frame per second faster. I know that sounds weird, but it's literally just that every second you're gaining a frame, so over time you've just got through the film faster. Visually, there is a difference between the two. If you watch the theatrical edit, there is film grain. It does have a slightly more cinematic feel to it, but it still carries over the interlacing sort of blur that happens on the digital version, because obviously that's how the film always looked. So in putting it on film, it hasn't got rid of that. You just have this more filmy texture, and I would say that the theatrical version is ever so slightly more like contrasty, but not to a degree that I think anyone would notice without sticking them side by side on a really good monitor. I personally went for the production edit when I watched it, because that's the slightly more immersive way of watching it, because it's just how the footage came out of the camera. But to be honest, I don't. It's a personal preference. I just think that is the more sort of faux real, immersive way of watching it. But I don't think. I mean, to be honest, it's not going to make a massive difference. Also, you just get through the film faster. I'm sorry if that was really confusing. I've tried my best to make it understandable, but if you have any further questions on that bit, drop them in the comments. Now, as I was saying, as well with the realism aspect of the film, I think the action is thematically very, very strong. I'm talking about not only like action sequences, but dialogue, how the plot progresses. I mean, we are all now very aware of what it is like to live in quarantines, in lockdowns, in whatever your country has called it. And I actually think Rec does a very, very good job of capturing a sort of microcosm of everything that has been happening recently, you know, present time argument. I mean, you've got, like, okay, the building's shut down. First thing everyone tries to do, despite being told not to go out, is they try to go out. Then they just panic a lot. Then they become really racist against the Chinese family that live in the apartment block. I'm like, literally, it's like Nostradamus had something to do with this film. They have nailed everything that happens in a quarantine situation. It's perfect. I can understand it. It is weird timing to bring out this release. I'm presuming Arrow thought, you know, either we'll get on the bandwagon or this will all be behind us now. And I can understand people perhaps not wanting to watch a film about people in a quarantine where they are all slowly dying in the middle of a pandemic right now. So it is a bit of an odd watch, but I think it does nail how everyone has been feeling. Another thing the film nails is the gore. It's really, really good. It was a lot better than I had remembered it. I don't know whether that's just because this restoration looks so good, but I mean, there is especially one point that really made me go, ugh. I was really impressed, and I did read that they did a lot more effects than you can actually see in the film because the camera didn't catch them because of its freewheeling style. So I think, you know, hats off to them for going the extra mile even for stuff that didn't appear on screen. Sound-wise, there isn't a massive amount to talk about. I mean, it's a found footage film in which the footage is just being presented to you. So it's not a documentary like Noroi where they can put a score on it. There isn't anything like that. They do some really cool things with having like the microphone get bashed around, or just playing around with the fact that the camera and the sound are being recorded then and there. So you're not just... It does it at very good moments. It does it in a lot of scenes where there's a lot of shrieking and suddenly you'll lose the sound, and it's quite nice because your ears aren't just being punished by yelling and screaming. And oh my god, the zombies make the most horrible noise in this film. They are proper... Like, the scream they make, it's not something you want to hear in a good way. They're genuinely quite unsettling. My only misgiving with the sound is that the film kind of ruins its tone with a sort of rock song that plays over the credits, but it kicks in like straight away after the big sort of final scare that the film ends with, and it's almost like, oh my god, I'm in shit, whoa, let's have a dance. It comes out of nowhere. It's a really weird decision that kind of ruins the emotion you would leave the film with. I mean, it's a testament to how well the film works over its 75 minutes-ish runtime, that the tone can be ruined at the end, because, I mean, this film is genuinely terrifying. It is so intense. It is one of the only zombie films that I can think of that is really, like, scary. It's not exciting. It's not an action film. I mean, it's fast-paced, but I think this is the second time I'd seen it, and I was genuinely on the edge of my seat all the way through it, even though I knew where it was going. A lot of that comes down to, I mean, like I said, the zombies themselves are terrifying. The location that they chose to shoot in is really good. The apartment block is it's claustrophobic enough that it's not, there is just this omnipresent sort of, but it's not restrictive. It feels like we're often moving around to new locations. Nothing seems like the image never feels particularly cluttered. And the central spirally staircase is used so well. It's just a great sort of tension builder. You get some jump scares out of it. They get so much mileage out of stairs. And of course that just brings us to, I mean, the end of Wreck is so good. I quite like where they decide to go with it. I know it doesn't suit everyone, but it's so creepy. It's so unsettling. It is the use of like darkness in the ending is so clever, and it is genuinely scary. There aren't many films that I would say are genuinely scary, especially on a second go round, but I'm trying not to give anything away, because if you've not seen Wreck, that ending will shit you up. It's great. I would recommend Wreck to anyone that likes horror movies, that wants a good, scary, tense, intense movie, because it delivers. It's lost none of its charm in the 13 years or whatever it is since it came out. It still holds up so well. Like I said, I can understand that it might not be a film for right now. It might Although, to be honest, it could be scarier if you watched it now. And I will say, I was nervous about this Arrow release because, I mean, it's a digital film. It's not the most amazing looking film. They've done wonders. It looks so good. It looks so crisp while still having a sort of gritty detail. And I don't know where they found them, but there are so many bonus features on this release. You've got loads of sort of archival interviews, 2 commentaries, one new, one older. You've got like the audition tapes for the actors, there's an on-set diary, there's proper like on-set making of, there's a short film. There is so much stuff. Like, again, did they see the future and know that this film was going to be amazing and that everyone would want a re-release of it down the line, so they just made all this stuff ready? It's really impressive how much stuff is on it, especially given that there have been a few Arrow releases recently that haven't had quite as much stuff on them. I mean, Burst City that I reviewed last time, that has nowhere near the amount of special features that this has. And I love that they put both versions of it on there, even though there's not that much difference. It's just a dedication to going, we're going to put as much stuff on this release as possible. It really is the best way to see Wreck, and if you've not seen it, now you have no excuse. If you've seen Quarantine and never got round to watching its, what inspired it, now is the best time. And it's a way better film than Quarantine, so even if you didn't like Quarantine, watch it. It's so good, and it's really scary. I am sort of hoping that they do a nice release of at least Wreck 2. I really like that as well, and I think they've proved that they can make them look really good. I'm not that fussed about having the 3rd and 4th one, but 2 would be nice. If you're watching out there, Arrow people, can we have 2? Thank you. But that's just my opinion. What do you think of Wreck? What do you think of its sequels? Do you want 2 to come out? Do you prefer Quarantine over Wreck? Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos. And I shall see you next time.